champagne and loving you till the break of dawn. Not knowing
Champagne sure is like the rich person's drink, while Coors Light, aka a bullet, is like the poor person's drink. And we're going to talk about that for a few minutes. I'm Van Lee of the Boob Tube Boys, or the Motion Picture Men, depending whatever you want to call us. Spencer Hendricks,
Yeah.
what do you prefer, champagne or bullets?
Well, like real bullets or the Coors Light?
You can take liberties.
Because, I mean, I'll take champagne over a bullet if it's an actual bullet.
Well, you get it. You get to throw it at somebody or whatever.
A bullet?
Sure.
Just toss one out of my hand?
Or engrave it with your name.
Yeah.
Or your nemesis's name.
No, I still think I'll pick the champagne. But I would rather have a Coors Light than a champagne because I'm not a rich asshole.
Brian Vaughn, are you a rich asshole?
I am a poor asshole.
Oh, okay.
And I would like a monogrammed bullet, and I would like to throw it at people.
Your name or your nemesis name?
Oh, it's mine. I want it back.
Oh,
So
okay.
is that
you
It's
have
not
to
going to
ask
be able to
back.
penetrate the skin. It's just going to hurt like throwing a rock at somebody.
Is that like a anti-gun sort of thing? Like a movement where you throw the bullets and you aim it at people who like guns and hit them in the head with a bullet and be like, see?
Oh, I'm not going to hit him in the head or anything. Maybe the shoulder.
Well, from close range, you know, you're not like hitting them. I'm not saying you're dropping it off the Eiffel Tower. That's
He's
not
up
what
there
it is.
all the time,
Sears,
too.
The Sears Tower.
What
I
if
think
there
is
was
where you
a
drop the
sniper
penny.
whose method was to stand on top of really tall buildings holding a bullet and dropping them down, hoping it hits somebody like, oh, I'm a...
So at that speed, it might do some damage.
Yeah, it really... How does that work? Is that real scientifically?
Partially, yes, it is real, but the height is far greater than you would think. You have to be far more than...
So like, you know...
I bet you Wings Hauser could do it. He hits that bullseye by right after wiggling his little ass over to that yellow van to grab his umbrella or whatever. One of the reasons I think I like this movie so much compared to other bad movies, other than the fact it just is dumber, there is a certain sense of ownership that I feel over it because it is not...
It's not as popular.
Yes, and especially when we first saw it. From what I read, it really didn't start getting its cult following until right around when we saw it. John DeHart did not re-release it until 2010.
Yeah, and the Blu-ray didn't come out until 2021, which is where a lot of the widespread
We're really
attention
early
came from.
adopters on this thing, guys.
It's close to our hearts, for sure.
You know, if it was new to YouTube, like recently uploaded it when we watched it?
I'm pretty sure it was, because we had...
I don't think it had a lot of views.
We had a little bit of trouble finding it initially, and then when we finally found it, we're like, oh, let's watch this, and holy shit.
Because I think
we
I tried to
watched it.
download it first, and there was no way. Like, it just didn't exist anywhere.
And we did this, by the way, on a night where we watched 3 total movies. Do you guys remember the other 2? We had
Guy from Harlem?
Guy from Harlem, which is a blaxploitation flick, which is awesome. It's so
Where
funny.
he eats tough steak and like dirty scotch.
Bad scotch. And then that woman wears a nightgown, which is just curtains. It's like body covering curtains. And then we also saw Hollywood Cop.
Yeah, with Zambo, right?
Zambo, the goat that needs washing.
Movie's incredible. It was a hell of a night, guys, just as this one is.
I think we would have liked those 2 movies more had we not seen Road to Revenge, because Road to Revenge took the cake.
I don't even know a good movie I can compare it to exactly, but it would be like seeing one of your favorite movies and then being asked to see like a very solid, well-made 3-star movie after.
I'm going to challenge you to actually do a concrete example, because you know how we talked about John DeHart said it's a lot like Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
So now let's say, so this is your favorite movie being Pulp Fiction, and then the 3-star movie being what compared to Pulp Fiction?
Even like another Tarantino movie could fit that.
Sure, there's
bill.
got to be like just an okay one.
Like the one with Kirk Russell,
Oh, I
where he
like that one.
drives. I liked it, but people hate it. What's it called?
Hateful Eight?
No, the one with the stunt women.
Oh, yeah. And
He was in the grindhouse.
And
thing.
we've talked about this on the podcast before, weirdly,
Yeah, we
too.
did.
Yeah, that's a Death Proof. It's very good.
It's great, but people hate it. But compared to Road to Revenge, or I'm sorry, in this scenario, compared to Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, it's like watching Pulp Fiction, and then you watch like The Fighter from 2010 with Mark Wahlberg. That movie's fine.
All right, good. I wanted to make you come up with a concrete one. You did it.
But
Good job.
after you saw, especially for the first time, all that energy and just, whoa, like the people involved in this are trying new stuff and they're trying it fast and loud. That's what you'd feel watching Pulp Fiction. And then you'd be like, afterwards, you'd watch The Fighter. You'd be like, this is good.
This will do.
fine.
This will do to kill some time.
I like these Boston accents.
Not that. I couldn't do it because of Mark Wahlberg. Can't stand him.
He's awful.
Let's get into the movie, shall we? We're
Okay.
getting to part 2. We're picking up where we left off last week, which is Wings Hauser had just been successfully sent to jail by his money-grubbing ex-wife, who revealed that in addition to sleeping with a bunch of Wings' friends, she was also sleeping with Normad, his mortal enemy. That's who Wings would put the name on his bullet. It would be Normad.
Oh, it totally would be.
Well, it's at Normad's house where we pick back up with the wrinkly old bulldog sitting on some lawn furniture in his house and going over some paperwork. And trigger warning here. This is real. This is very much a real trigger warning. It's about to get very rapey.
And by the way, yeah, we're going to have a few this episode specifically
that are genuinely upsetting.
Yeah.
So it happens. We'll get through them in the way we do.
And they weren't scenes
we
had seen before, even having seen other cuts of the movie.
Alex, the ex-wife of Wings, walks into Normad's house and tells the villain that her ex-husband is making some big accusations about Normad being a crooked cop and a dope dealer. And I hate the word dope dealer.
I do too.
Dope. It's just silly to me.
It's also such an all-purpose old person word for any kind of drugs.
Drug.
I feel like it kind of undermines the drug. Like you're
bit.
you're not giving it the credit it's due, just calling it dope.
Yeah, I feel like if it's cool drugs, it makes it sound too serious, and if it's not cool drugs, it makes them sound too fun.
But if it is cool drugs, you can still refer to them as dope.
Yeah, but just as an adjective, not a noun. Check out this dope bag of weed I have.
Normad looks at the woman and asks her how she knows all this, that Wings Hauser was talking this shit about Normad. She responds that she just came from Wings' house, so Normad accuses her of discussing him, and she kind of says, well, no, I mean, you just came up in conversation.
How can we not talk about you, Normad?
And how couldn't you? If you knew of a man this remarkable, you would speak of him often. We do.
I would tell strangers about him, just at like Walmart.
You're a very well-known and popular guy, of course.
I'm going to ask you guys a question. Since we first encountered the character of Normad, do you think there's been a month that went by where he didn't somehow flit into your mind?
Probably not.
Probably not.
That's tough. Month is about as long as it could be.
That's what I was saying,
you said 2 weeks. Okay, yeah, that's
when we did this podcast about this movie like 10 years ago or whatever it was, 7 years ago, I specifically had a shout out to Normad at the end. I was like, we were talking about our favorites, and I said it's got to be Normad. So I have a soft spot for Normad. He's a wonderful man, just not actually.
Normad has a soft spot for human sacrifice.
For killing babies.
Yeah.
Well, after Alex says this, Normad backhands the woman across the face and tells her never to discuss him with anyone. When she protests and apologizes, he slaps her again. This time making a big growly noise as he does it. He goes, rah, and smacks.
Yeah, he does a lot of growls during his violence.
He tells her to get ready now, and then he slaps her again as she says she loves him. He yells at her some more, telling her to get ready, goddammit. Finally, she gets up and begins to strip off her clothes with a very terrified expression on her face. This goes from comically awful bad movie stuff to terrifying, look away from the screen real quickly stuff. She is stripped down to her bra and panties, and he tells her to get on the desk, so she bends over forward on the desk as he walks around to her backside. He reiterates that he means, do not talk about me, ever. Do not mention my name. I'm a judge. You got to keep this stuff secret or whatever. Then he runs a hand across her butt, grabbing her underwear and pulling it down, but not all the way past the butthole. Butthole is still covered.
This movie is willing to do anything.
But butthole.
But butthole.
She's crying softly to herself, and he violently slaps her on the ass, letting out another bark as he does so. When she says he's hurting her, he spanks her again. He keeps pacing from either side of her and occasionally slapping her on the ass. Now, again, this scene is very uncomfortable to watch, but I will say because it's a very low-budget movie and because the director, editor, whatever, doesn't know how to cut scenes, it's kind of comical if you can get past what's happening and think about the actor of William Smith slapping this girl but not hitting her too hard because obviously it's an actress. And that's what he does. He kind of grazes her a couple of times.
Yeah, this whole thing is terribly done and not believable, and Normad barks a lot. So once you've seen it a million times and you get that sense of danger out of your system because you're like, well, this movie sucks and isn't to be taken seriously. Let me put it this way. Later, there's another scene that is not... This scene sucks and is awful and is irredeemable and shouldn't be in the movie. We have a scene earlier in our last episode we talked about where Normad murders a baby. That is also really horrible.
But hilarious.
Because he's swinging that knife around everywhere and he's saying, I love you, Satan. Now, that is easier to laugh at or whatever because you're not actually seeing anything happen. And this scene and the one that follows, you kind of do, and it just takes it does kind of take the fun out of the stupidity of the making of it.
I'll take it a step further, too. In this scene, we're seeing your villain, your main villain, do awful things that cements him as a bad guy. So structurally, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Later on, we've got the henchman doing something horrible. You don't need to know that about the henchman.
No, they're just there to do a specific job, too.
Right.
They're not there to do that.
That doesn't fill any purpose other than gratuity.
Other than John DeHart writing it in the script, which don't do that.
Well, finally, Normad says, you don't understand. I'm a judge. That means I have to be very careful. He gives her one last spank, pulls her underwear back all the way up. Again, never made it past the butthole. And kisses her on the ass, responding to her sobbing I love yous with, I love you too, sweetheart. It's genuinely
It's
gross.
fucked up. Also, when is he careful about anything?
No.
He's constantly like, I love Satan, I'm evil, yay, I got the money and the drugs.
Well, he says some stuff that we can't hear, too, because he just mumbles and the audio doesn't. It's bizarre because this is a very bad cut of a movie. But he grabs her by the back of the head, forces her onto her knees before kissing her on the forehead, and makes her take off his pants. Mercifully, before we start seeing anything else, the scene cuts, though.
I was starting to wonder, are we going to get the whole thing
How
here?
far are we going with this?
And in a real movie, you would know that's not going to happen. But in this, anything's... Because John DeHart doesn't edit well, I mean, we see like 5-minute sex scenes in this thing.
Well, how do you come back from this kind of horrific moment, I ask you, gentlemen? You do it exactly the way Champagne and Bullets does it, by fucking up a scene and not cutting it appropriately. In this one, we find Normad in his judge's attire sitting at the judge desk, and this is not abnormal. This is fine. Okay, we get it. What is abnormal is that I counted again. Took a full 17 seconds before the scene clearly is supposed to begin. In those 17 seconds, Normad is just kind of looking around and adjusting things on his judge desk. He looks forward, opens his eyes real wide and his mouth almost as much before he finally grabs his gavel and pounds it, saying, this court is now in session. But up to grabbing the gavel, that was not supposed to be in the movie.
I feel like someone made the motion that like we're starting the action, you know, like when William Smith starts.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, John DeHart was just like, I don't know, I really like the sort of slice of life element of starting before the action.
It sure looks like him being confused and looking around should be in the movie.
Yeah, I wonder why these women that were at the police station for an unrelated thing are also sitting in the courtroom. I wonder if we didn't have enough extras.
The trial that Normad is overseeing is, of course, that of Huck Finney, a.k.a. Wings Hauser, who's being pitted against the world's tiniest lawyer, John Drew, assistant DA. We see Rick and Laney and a bunch of other weirdos in the back as Wings makes his way to the stand, and at least this time in court, he's not wearing a colorful classic car shirt. He's upgraded to a plain white t-shirt tucked into his slacks with a sport coat over it.
It looks kind of good. As far as outfits in this movie go.
Certainly.
You think Laney has a thing for Huck? Because every time Huck has a thing, she's there.
I think it's more likely that it's all for Rick. Because
Yeah.
Rick's so close
He's
to him,
such a
and
great man.
and she loves Rick. That's why she gives him all the work. You know,
Yeah.
that's what Wings was bitching about in the first scene, or way earlier in the movie. Is how come she likes you so much more than me? I feel like it's just because Rick is so awesome and everyone loves him.
She needs to be there to support Rick so he can support his friend.
Well, the DA says it's in his opinion that the court should revoke Wings' bail because his behavior has been erratic and violent, and he feels the
What?
giant perm-haired man is a danger to society.
Wings has never been erratic or violent.
He's a big baby.
He's only attacked cops 3 times because he knows what we all know. A cab. All cops are Brad Garrett.
Of course. All of that's correct. He is violent and erratic and all that. And we've seen the man shoot bills, punch cops. But anyway, wait a minute. All this sounds awesome.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Huck Finney rules.
And he talks to statues and irons beer into pants.
Man, he's great. Rick yells, "What's going on here?" just as the DA is explaining what is going on here. But he's also behind Wings Hauser, so we don't really see Rick say the line. We just see his outline kind of wiggle a little bit.
But you know that voice.
Oh, yeah.
If you're just a spectator in court and you do that one time, aren't you gone? I
Yes.
don't know, but I would think.
Well, Normad tells him to shut up, and Wings tells Normad he's just some asshole in a black dress.
Shut up or I'll sacrifice. Oops. I mean, contempt of court.
As you can imagine, though, calling him an asshole in a black dress pisses Normad off, and the judge revokes Wings' bail, has him removed from court, adding additional charges to his record.
It's so professional and judge-like for him to scream "No bail" because he made him mad.
By calling him names, essentially. Rick also adds, after Huck's dress line to Normad, Rick adds, "Oh, you should get some heels and pearls," something like that. And that was actually the line, I remember now, that John DeHart cited as like, I wrote comedy for this movie too. I said this line, and he like goes to great pains to mention it specifically as if he thought it were really funny.
Well, I remember in that interview, he says something like, Wings does some improv, but, when he reads my funny stuff, it's really funny. And this is an example of that.
Yeah.
That's what he pointed to, and
Yeah.
it is not funny.
It's one of the least funny jokes of a slew of horribly unfunny jokes.
Before he's removed from court, Wings gets in one last jab at Normad, saying he was smuggling drugs when he was a cop. Now he's throwing people in jail, and yet it's Wings who's in contempt of court.
To be
Scoff.
fair, if you had a guy who was a cop at the same time level that accusation, wouldn't someone look into it?
You would think. Well, and of course, the reality is if this were real life, no one would let Normad be the judge. He's
Why?
invested in this case. He knows Huck.
And also, who let him be a judge?
Right. As the courtroom clears out, Rick and Laney are leaving together, and Rick, who is wearing what I would call his thinking man outfit, that's a red and black flannel patterned button-up shirt underneath a big gray sport coat, along with big Charles Nelson Riley style glasses.
Yeah, he looks like a fucking owl.
But that's not all. As
Man.
Porky Pig might say, that's not all, folks. And we all know Porky Pig fucks, as we've established previously.
Mhm. That's why it's always out.
Rick is still rocking the very, very tight leather pants this whole time.
They work. No need to take them off.
Don't fix what ain't broke or whatever.
Yeah.
Wait,
Look.
did I do that right?
That's close enough. If it
Look.
ain't broke, don't fucking fix it.
The brain needs to be ready to think. That's why he's wearing those glasses. That makes you smarter. That's why I wear them. That's why Spencer's
That's why.
wearing them right now, because
Yeah.
we're so smart.
It's not because you can't see.
No,
No.
that has nothing to do with it.
I got mine over here somewhere.
But down below, in those leather pants,
Got to be ready to fuck.
yes. It's sensual, as John DeHart might say.
And yeah, John DeHart could do either thing. He could think, he could fuck, and he could do either one. He's very fluid in his actions.
We see him both think and fuck in this movie.
Arguably. I don't know that there was a lot of thinking going on.
I was
No.
going to say, I think he comes closer to fucking than thinking, and he really doesn't do either.
Oh, and Laney, by the way, is wearing the exact same outfit she always wears. It's like this burnt sienna orange jacket with like frills all
To
over it.
match your skin.
It really does. I'm assuming that's the outfit she was buried in.
It's the
So she just has
it's
to
the
wear it.
Martha Stewart sarcophagus
Poor Laney.
collection.
Anyway, Rick is upset about this case because, as we said, it's very much illegal. So as John Drew, assistant DA, walks by, Rick calls him out.
Bullshit. Normad can't hear this case.
What are we gonna do about it?
Listen, you polyester puppet.
All right, slow down. What are you talking about?
Huck and Normad were on the police force together. Normad never liked Huck. He can't be the judge. It's illegal.
All right, I'll look into the matter.
Well, you see that you do, or I'll go over your head.
If you don't get this taken care of, I'll speak to the manager. I will do it.
I tell you what, he does. That accent comes out a lot at the end.
I guess
there.
when he gets angry or something, it's more.
You don't want to get me
Audible.
angry.
That's the secret, Cap. I'm always angry.
Polyester puppet.
What?
That's good.
Well, I don't even understand. Like, I guess I would have thought like pinstripe puppet would have been something that I would have thought, but polyester.
That's what he would say to Babe Ruth.
Well, according to the Bible, you're not allowed to wear polyester. It's a mixture of fabrics, and you can be stoned to death for it.
Huh.
Nobody quotes that part of the Bible, but
I didn't know that.
The way he says polyester puppet too very forcefully, I feel like he's got a list of jokes and insults, and he picks one for a scene that he just thinks
Like
is
one
clever.
from column A and one from column B.
Yeah.
and then let's write it in the script.
And it just awkwardly finds its way in there. And he really thinks he's being a badass when he delivers
He's
them.
dressing him down, and that lawyer's like, "Oh, what? I've never been insulted in this fashion before." And
Especially by a man in such fashion.
I like too how he says that's illegal for Normad, who knows Huck, to make some sort of legal decision on him. The lawyer's like, "Oh, I'll look into it. I'll see."
I don't know the law.
Holy shit. No, I mean, really scandalous things are illegal. You're right.
Well, he's only the assistant DA. He's not the DA, guys. In jail, Huck is not having such a good time. He's sweaty, covered in stains, and sitting very strangely.
Looks awful.
It's not
Like
comfortable.
a half crouch.
I'm assuming he's having alcohol withdrawals because he just does not look great. Arriving behind him outside of the cell is a denim-clad Renaissance festival of a man who has a mop and some cleaning supplies. The janitor asks Wings, "Hey, how's it going?" and then takes out his mop, runs it across the floor like twice before he just wanders off screen.
He's got to clean up that spot. That's his job.
This gives Wings an idea. He looks over at the mop bucket and sees a bottle of Clorox bleach, so he rips the cap off of it and chugs a bunch just as the janitor comes back. He rushes off to get a guard, and we get to watch Wings Hauser pretend to vomit for a few moments. Too long, I would say.
I'm surprised he didn't just do that for real, too.
You know, it's also entirely possible that he's in jail and did this.
Yeah, and they just filmed it.
They just had a camera in there. As abruptly as the scene ends, the next one begins, and we find Wings now in a hospital bed rocking back and forth as a nun sits in front of him. Yeah, it's Sister Mary Rebecca. It's worth noting that this nun has zero tone in her voice. She sounds like a text-to-speech program in 1995.
Yeah, like before they made it like it is now.
This is unbearably bad acting. This is the worst we've seen in anything we've covered from Sister Mary Rebecca. I'm sure she's someone's niece. That's cool. I don't understand how you let this happen because she has a lot of lines.
A lot, and she comes back a couple times.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be possible for anyone to be this bad at acting.
No.
It's not possible.
Especially when you're alongside fucking John DeHart here, stealing the scene because you're that bad.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't Wings give her some advice on how to act? Well, I guess that would just be drink and do whatever you want.
Ramble.
She might have gotten some inspiration from him because this first scene, she gets quite a bit of a one-on-one with Wings, right? It's really a memorable scene.
This is her moment. She thinks of this moment, like my time in the spotlight. Maybe it was a character trait. Maybe Rick was like, no, nuns are like that, so you got to talk like this. Or was she just this bad?
Wings, I've got it in the script here that Sister Mary Rebecca's an android.
No, I think she's just that bad.
Yeah, I think she's so beyond the pale that it just has to be that.
Well, after just the mention of her name, Wings bleats out a massive scoff, and this rolls right off what we're about to learn is a very important character in the movie. Sister Mary Rebecca continues and asks Wings if there's anything he wants to talk about as the, quote, medic seemed very distressed. Medic is like a war term, right? You don't call like nurses medics,
No.
right?
I guess you could say that about a doctor still, couldn't
Look at that
you?
medic over there.
Why would you?
So I'm a medic.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
a doctor.
It's in the Boob Tube Boys kayfabe world.
Don't put little stipulations on this.
I won't
I
say
need a
this.
job,
You
Brian.
know how many bones there are. So you have to be a
7.
doctor. Did you know that, by the way?
If you know how many bones there are, you have to be a doctor.
Yeah. It's like how
like the-
every square is a rectangle.
It's like the bar exam for doctors, except it's just the one question. How
Yeah.
many bones are there?
Yeah, I
It's
haven't
not
been
even that. It just says bones, question mark.
and I haven't been able to pass yet.
You'll get there.
Every time I answer the question, yeah, we've covered bones.
I do wish that those professions that are years and years and years of schools and all kinds of tests would have just like a hilariously easy entrance exam
Mhm.
to where just anyone can do it after all, but only after all the school.
I think it's fair to assume that in this movie that is the case, and that's how Normad did all this. Just answered a couple multiple choice questions. I'm a judge.
This just popped in my head, though. We watched a Christian movie or horse movie, maybe both, where it was in California and the guy was a lawyer because you didn't have to pass the bar exam.
I remember
remember
this
this?
now, yeah.
And I looked it up and it was a real fact. I don't think it's any longer the case, but maybe that's what Normad did.
So, and John DeHart in real life passed the bar exam.
He did. He was studying for it, passed it with flying colors.
Wings Hauser
He knew
passes
how
the
many
bar exam.
He knew how many laws there were. That's how you pass that one.
That's the bar exam.
Mhm.
They're adding new ones all the time. That's why I'm the #1 lawyer here, Huck.
Bonus question was, can you quote some Shakespeare? And he was like, yeah.
Well, one of them I can hear. Oh, to be or not to be, or the mountain.
With action.
Sister Mary Rebecca does the usual religious stuff here and is just like, our Savior is in control.
Stop. You're way too much emotion in your voice.
I don't know if I can get that
You
low.
can't.
No,
It's like a
that's what I'm saying.
void.
It shouldn't be possible to read lines that way. I don't know how she does it.
She says these are just challenges placed before you to test you, blah, blah, blah. Wings responds with, oh, okay. Can you ask him to help me with the rent and utilities?
That is exactly how he
child
says
support?
that.
That's
The
really
rent.
good.
I've been practicing.
What's super cool is that Wings is able to do that, affect that demeanor across her.
Right.
Yeah.
Opposite her reading her lines like that, and he's still killing it with pay the rent.
But as we've said, he tends to pick up slack. There's 100% of allotable energy for any scene. If John DeHart uses 10%, Wings uses 90.
He knows how much to fill.
What a
Mhm.
professional.
We love you. Oh, and by the way, he does say child support, which means Wings has a child in this universe.
Do you think he meant alimony? Because earlier in the script, that's the big
Right.
point of contention for
I want to
Alex.
think he has a kid.
You would think Alex would have mentioned that too, though, or maybe it's not with her.
Could be.
Yeah,
Previous one.
we've got all
Oh, that
kinds of
could be.
alternate theories here.
What if he thinks he has a kid with Alex, but the kid's actually Normad's? That kid's going to turn out so evil.
But you said, but he's actually Normad.
Daddy. How old would Normad's dad have to be? 1,000?
At least. Well, maybe that's where, what's her name came from. Normad was the dad,
Oh.
and they created this eternal, timeless guy who can do anything he puts his mind to.
Maybe Normad's actually the son of the devil.
The sister responds with the usual, our Savior works in mysterious ways. I mean, sure, sometimes he likes to throw massive famine on a huge swath of people. Sometimes he lets the most vile things imaginable happen to babies, like they're stabbed by Normad. It's a test. He's in control.
I think it's in Genesis, as early in the Bible, something about like, God will not grant you absolution from Normad.
Right.
So you know that. Like, everybody's taught that as a little kid. It's like one of the commandments even, maybe.
It's the 11th commandment. While she speaks this whole time, Wings is sipping very loudly on a glass of water while still smoking a cigarette. Now, point that out. Cigarette in the hospital. That's what's happening right here. And I guess that probably did happen in 1993.
I don't think they were quite fully banning it yet at that time.
Well, it was like here when we worked at the bowling alley. It was like 2005 when they had the smoking ban in businesses.
Yeah.
So it couldn't have been before
that. It was
that.
fairly recent in the grand scale of things.
At that time period, too, when you went into a restaurant, they were polite to ask you, like, do you want to smoke or do you want to just sit next to the people who are smoking? It was like the smoking or non-smoking sections.
You're going to hate it no matter what.
Some hotels, though, still will do that. Do you want a smoking room or a non-smoking room?
I didn't know that.
She tells him that these are all, of course, just temporary obstacles, all the stuff he's dealing with. He needs to just have faith. Everything will be okay. She also then plays the whataboutism role, saying, it's not that difficult to be without shoes when others have no feet, which made me so angry.
Yeah, I hate that
People
stuff.
need shoes and help for not having feet. It's not one or the other.
That, like you said, it's that whataboutism stuff that tries to take away the importance of anything by just comparing it to another thing that has nothing to do with the first thing.
We need some sort of varying voice here on Motion Picture Men. We need a religious one of us who can give the counterpoint on these, because we always just destroy this shit and we all see it through the same lens. We need a Boob Tube Boy who's like, think about it like this. Like, we need a sister, what's her name? Sister Mary.
Mary Rebecca, yeah, of course.
And just that tone on the Boob Tube Boys,
I'll give it
too.
a shot if you want for now. Yeah, I don't believe you can do anything of your own volition, and your life on Earth's actually super pointless.
Your actions are futile.
Yeah, you want to suck up to our great Father with a capital F, so eventually you can earn an eternity of praying and worshiping.
They have a skee ball table, too, though. Yeah, there's just a long line, so you'll need to play it like once every eternity.
They have ping pong?
No.
Well, fuck that. I'm not going there. I was right the first time.
Anyway, she bails, so we're done with her for now. But dryly, she tells Wings that he should think about what she said, and he laughs at her.
And she laughs, too. They share a little giggle together. It's cute.
Except then he says, you're very pretty for a nun. And also, what I really need is a candy striper and a sponge bath. What is a candy striper?
I think it's a hospital volunteer.
Or like a nurse of some sort?
Yeah, and this is something that in older movies and comedies, like, you'll see that. Like, people,
I've heard it.
There's some sort of connotation there, sexually.
John DeHart wrote the line, so
true.
All the other things that happened in this movie came from his brain, so I'm sure it's not hard to figure out what he thought in his head when he wrote it.
I have to tell you guys a story that this reminded me of, which is old men and the things they say to women. I was at a fantasy baseball meeting back when this still happened a few years ago.
Is this with RBL?
Yeah, with a few older guys, they're all probably in their
hundreds.
Yeah, some of them, yes. And one of them, whenever he wanted to get the waitress's attention, he referred to her as nurse.
Intentionally? That's kind of gross.
It's disgusting.
Like, was it nurse?
Yes, kind of like
joke?
that. It was meant jokingly, but that's like another one of these old-time comedy things where that's supposed to be, I don't know, the implication is that the bartender is the nurse, like giving you your medicine, but there's also some weird, it weirded me out. It made me start thinking, then, this is a long time ago, you have to really, as you age, kind of understand, like, younger people might not know what the fuck you're talking about.
Right, yeah.
I mean, and this has, the potential sexual harassment angle, but even in innocuous situations, young people might not know what we're talking about.
They often don't.
Yeah.
Based on our demographics.
Yeah, and we don't TikTok enough.
Yeah, I need to TikTok more.
Oh yeah, I forgot. We have a TikTok.
We sure do. At Bootu Inc. I think it's an @ I don't know what comes before that. There's some fun stuff on there.
Yeah.
Anyway, just then the happy couple of Rick and Cindy arrive with a hearty huckster. Rick's, of course, here in his trademark leather pants. Cindy's carrying a very sad flower and a pot for Wings. Rick pipes up with, hey, I heard you did that bleach thing. Do you know what Wings says? Just like in good movies. He goes, what? And then Rick has to repeat the line. Does Why would you?
I don't know. So the way he just tosses it off, like, hey, the bleach thing, we've talked about doing this before.
It's like a grand plan of Wings for his whole life or
I've
something.
been talking about this for years.
Since he
One
was
of
a
these
little
days.
kid.
Ever since we were growing up on the playground, we talked about playing for the Yankees and drinking bleach to get out of jail to have your stomach pumped.
The two people in the scene who have not yet drank bleach tell Wings that they also have some good news. They've petitioned the court and had Normad removed from the case. Great. Assistant DA John Doe, or whatever his name was, got it taken care of. Rick says they're heading out to Santa Barbara to pick up Cindy's clothes. We'll check in on the way back. Hopefully you'll be released by then. But either way, come and see us at the house. The movie decides to go a little deeper than it traditionally does, and Wings posits a question for the ages.
I understand. Let me ask you something very important. Is this half full or half empty?
It's kind of dirty. It looks like it's got ashes in it.
Is it half full or half empty?
Half full.
No, it's water.
Yeah, sure. Fish is swimming.
So the takeaway here is that Wings' revelation is that it's not half full, it's not half empty, it's water.
Uh-huh.
Rick's little takeaway here is a fish will swim in that.
Right.
What a good movie.
That's his improv there.
I guarantee it.
From what I've learned in therapy, Huck is correct here. We cannot see this water as good nor bad.
Just water.
It's water.
Okay.
Well, Huck is at the point right now where he's having this breakthrough.
He is.
At this point in the
Mhm.
movie, he kind of turns it around.
Turning point
in the
for him,
rest
for
of
sure.
the way.
As we talk more about Huck, don't be misled by the fact that he's still super incoherent and drunk. Don't let that make you think he hasn't figured things out.
We're headed to Santa Barbara in Rick's windowless and doorless Jeep to get Cindy's clothes from her father's house next. And it's once again time to stop before we get started and discuss the outfits involved in this scene. Let's start with Cindy. If I could sum up hers, it would be airline mechanic.
Smurf astronaut.
Anything to add, Spencer?
No, I didn't notice.
It's some blue jumpsuit, which she has tucked her like knee-high black leather boots into.
And this is a onesie, as Van,
this
as
is
you
a
alluded
onesie.
to.
I do remember this is another like leather pants scene, right, for Rick?
for
Yeah.
sure.
I think pretty much the rest of the way he leather pants it.
Yeah, actually, I don't think the wedding,
Okay.
but yeah, for the
He
most part,
puts-
you're right.
He puts
I
them
bet-
back on at the very end for all the action.
The
Well,
revenge.
because
yeah.
leather pants are so famously flexible.
This time, though, in addition to the leather pants, Rick has decided to go somewhere between professional and relaxed fit up top because his shirt is a long sleeve button up shirt that's as loud as Wings Hauser is. It's like red and blue with purple vertical stripes, and he has inexplicably tucked it into his black leather pants.
It's like a Windows NT screensaver of a shirt.
It's like, what's the expression? It's a train wreck. You want to look, but you can't look away. That's exactly what it is. He's also wearing a pair of large, gaudy sunglasses with one of those chain things to the earpieces.
So he doesn't lose them.
Yeah, and he actually takes them off and dangles the glasses over his neck like an old woman
It is
later on.
such an old person thing to do. Again, he is old. Everything John Hart does in this scene emphasizes how dumb his outfit looks.
Well, the two spend a while walking up to the house. They greet a couple of dogs that are just lying down on the lawn, which I wanted to do. I wanted to pet them. Once they make it to the front door, they begin banging frequently on the door. And I mean that. It's like 5 patterns of several knocks. Eventually, a paunchy old man with a mustache, and no, I'm not talking about Rick, a different paunchy man with a mustache, answers the door, and Cindy greets him with a very soft, "Hi, Dad." We see the scene from Dad's perspective, which means we get a good look head on of Rick, and wow. I did neglect to mention that he is wearing several gold chains and that his stripy shirt is not buttoned up all the way. It's down a couple in front.
Show off the pecs.
Cindy's dad tells her that he told her never to bring any of his young hotshot friends to the house. Rick takes too long to answer. He just kind of stands there for a minute, shakes his head, and eventually offers up a slight twist on his catchphrase. This time he says, "It shouldn't be a problem, sir. I'm just here to help her move her clothes."
I like to make it a complete sentence from time to time, maybe change the tense up. I'm a versatile man.
The dad responds with, "I won't have your kind in my home." And Rick says, "What kind is that? Young, sexy hunk with leather pants?"
That is how this scene is played. If anyone thinks Van is joking, the scene is played that Rick is a hot stud stealing away this strange, troubled man's daughter.
The dad ends up saying, "Get thee behind me, Satan," showing that they are, in fact, religious nut jobs. We get another example of those. So no wonder, by the way, your daughter joins a satanic cult. If you're that crazy
And
religious.
she tells him this.
And I think that means it's a great time to reveal something to you, gentlemen. And that something is that I have personally joined the Satanic Temple, and I signed you guys up too. We are now members of the Satanic Temple of America.
We love you, Satan.
Do we get to go to the cool meetings, though, where they don't do the baby Normad stuff?
If we want, sure.
Baby Normad. What was
Oh, I would watch that movie 100 times. Oh, man.
Normad babies?
Got that mustache. No, I'm a baby now. Yeah, whatever. Give me my fucking rattle. Look at all the formula I've accumulated. He starts snorting it. Well, the Satanic Church, of course, offers a membership card. It's $35 each. I wanted to get them for us, but I don't have $100.
Yeah, that's
so I didn't.
a lot.
But we are members of it, and I thought we could read the 7 fundamental tenets of being a part of the Satanist Church.
Is Normad involved in this at all?
No,
okay.
sadly.
That's okay. That's okay.
I do see there's an after-school Satan club.
Yeah.
Field trips to Hot Topic.
The first fundamental tenet of the Satanic Temple is one should strive to act with compassion and empathy toward all creatures in accordance with reason.
Sounds
Very
nice.
good.
Yeah, I'm in.
Number 2, the struggle for justice is an ongoing and necessary pursuit that should prevail over laws and institutions.
Yeah.
Get behind
Makes
that.
total sense.
Go
I mean, of
Satan.
course, that leaves it up to one's individual perception,
Bingo.
but I agree with the sentiment.
Right. Number 3, one's body is inviolable, subject to one's will alone, meaning no one else has control over your body and you.
Except for Satan.
And no, I get a sense of no fatalism there. You know, like
Right.
it's not predetermined.
Sure. Number 4, the freedoms of others should be respected, including the freedom to offend. To willfully and unjustly encroach upon the freedoms of another is to forego one's own. I get the sentiment behind
Yeah.
it. I'll say that. Number 5, beliefs should conform to one's best scientific understanding of the world. One should take care never to distort scientific facts to fit one's belief.
I see why God doesn't like this.
Number 6, people are fallible. If one makes a mistake, one should do one's best to rectify it and resolve any harm that might have been caused. And then finally, number 7, every tenet is a guiding principle designed to inspire nobility in action and thought. The spirit of compassion, wisdom, and justice should always prevail over the written or spoken word.
I mean, this is a pretty good starting point.
I like
pretty
this.
good set
This
of
church
tenets.
is pretty cool.
And don't they do a lot of
Charity work.
activism stuff too and charity work?
Well, okay, I'll explain it. So
Yeah.
there are 2 groups. There's like the Church of Satan, I think it's called, and then there's the Satanic Temple. The Church of Satan is based on the teachings of some guy in the 70s. I don't remember his name. And it's the kind of satanic panic, stab goats or whatever. The Satanic Temple is more just a facetious way to say, like, we're going against standardized religion. And
Yeah,
it has
and to kind of
members
make the point of like, well, then fine, we're a religious organization.
Yep. And that's what we're a part of now. You're welcome.
We're part of a religious organization.
See,
I don't really
fulfilled
have-
your role, Spencer.
We might run into Normad. at
I
these
don't
things.
have the objection I thought I would.
Right.
When I saw that email that I joined the Satanic Temple, it's like, well, now it makes sense and I'm okay with it.
What's really funny is I had to sign you guys up before you got here, so I did. We're taking a break between our first 2 episodes, and Spencer's like, why did I get an email from the Satanic Temple? Just leave it. Don't mess with that.
You'll need that later.
Well, back to the scene at hand. Cindy tries to reason with her dad, and by the way, her stepmother's here too, and they mirror the couple of Cindy and Rick. It's the stepmother is younger than the dad, and Cindy asks if she can just come in and get her clothes, but the dad says, no, we'll go get him. You 2 wait here.
Where's this dad in terms of worst actors in this movie? Up there.
He's better than the nun.
Better than the nun. He
He's
might
worse.
be the next worst.
He's worse than John DeHart.
Yeah, he is. He's really bad and
His
awkward.
first line read when he pops the door open and you see his dumb face is that he looks at Rick and he says something like, and what are you, some kind of drugged out
it's coming up.
hillbilly from Hollywood? He waits for like 30 seconds before remembering, oh, Hollywood is the line that I'm supposed to say here.
Look, River Phoenix is at the door.
Well, after the parents close the door, Cindy explains that he is a rigid man, her dad, who hasn't accepted any friend of Cindy's since grade school. And then Rick says, well, I probably shouldn't have come then. After all, there's no way the dad would have been anything other than intimidated by his daughter bringing home some hotshot, young, leather pants-clad man like me. He mumbles about how families should take care of their own problems alone.
He thinks that's wise, I
Yeah.
think, but not sure what he's talking about.
And as he says this, he grabs the overhang of the house like a weird teenager would do.
He's
You
showing
know,
off.
it's very awkward. He uses
Peacocking.
both hands at one point.
I thought he was
gonna
going to
swing.
start doing a pull-up or something, yeah.
Just then the door opens and Cindy's dad flings a couple of boxes of her clothes out onto the ground against his daughter's protests. Rick turns to face the parents as Cindy gathers her things, and the stepmother speaks up by saying Cindy has always had a bad attitude.
At least as long as I've known her, which is 5 years.
Rick tells them to calm down and try to work out their problems, but this causes the dad to ask just exactly who Rick is.
Who are you? Another drug-contaminated devil worshiper from Hollywood?
Cindy, that ought to be good enough for you. I don't do drugs or worship the devil.
This is Rick. He was on the police force for 7 years, and now he drives a limousine.
Why is he an ex-policeman? He get thrown off for drugs? Satan worshipping?
We get it.
Yeah, this guy's a little hung up on the drugs and Satan
He
worshiping.
just keeps coming back to that.
And that's the two coolest things you can do.
What do you think an average teen does, like on a Friday night?
Drugs and Satanism.
I feel like that's his answer to just every single thing.
Of course.
Rick specifically just said, I don't do drugs and don't worship Satan. And then like 2 seconds later, the guy's like, well, what are you doing? Worshiping Satan and doing drugs?
Also, by the way, this is Rick. He was on the police force for 7 years.
And now he
drives a limousine. That's not a perk.
No,
I
that
don't
doesn't
think.
really talk him up.
Also,
No context there.
if he was only on the force for 7 years, does that mean he started as a cop at 45?
What do you mean? He's like 27.
Excuse me, yeah. Cindy gets her moment to shine here as the dad argues with her, saying he raised her right, but now here she is, arm in arm, some young daredevil. But Cindy argues that, in fact, it was the dad's strict religious rules that caused her to rebel, and his intolerance that caused their mother to leave and eventually die before being raised from the dead to own a limousine business and a bar. Dad calls her a gutter snipe who will be found dead on the road someday. And with that, her parents go back into the house, leaving a stunned Cindy there holding her 2 boxes of clothes.
I love the
They're-
gutter snipe thing.
They're awful. And this extra exposition here, while very heavy-handed and not delivered well, I think this is the sort of extra content that's not in the other cuts that's at least like good nature.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's trying to say a positive thing, not show some horrendous sex crime.
Yeah, not trying to be edgy. It's just offering a little more insight into Cindy's character.
And why she might be susceptible to cults.
I like to think of it as the extended family fight scene.
Well, and I mentioned that it was her time to shine, and it really was. This is her
And she
message.
didn't. She didn't shine.
She certainly didn't, but she did get a chance to do that. And I almost feel like this was a, hey, John DeHart,
Throwing her a bone.
can I have my moment?
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, let's make a message and I'll hang off the roof.
No, but later I'm going to rub on you some more.
You gotta let me rub.
Ugh.
Cindy and Rick walk back to the Jeep, and Rick attempts to peel out, but he can't quite get the Jeep out in gear, so they kind of half-ass pull away and just drive off into the hot California desert.
I'd be worried those boxes of clothes they drove out here to get and endured all this trauma would fall out of this doorless vehicle.
Especially since there's like one shirt in each box. Next, we have a moment that is drastically different depending on what cut of the movie you're watching. Road to Revenge and Get Even feature Rick and Cindy sitting on the Jeep in the desert as the sun goes down, talking about whatever. I don't even remember what they were saying. This cut, however, Champagne and Bullets, features a brand new song that wasn't in the other cut, never heard before. Let's listen.
When the world feels like it's caving in on us, and the waves are crashing in the deep blue sea. Oh, baby, remember, there's always you and me.
What a songwriter, my friends.
So after enduring this big, what did you refer to the previous scene as, Spencer? Like the extended family?
Yeah, the extended family fight.
After enduring that, this is a scene that establishes through song and visual that this is an us against them scenario. Rick and Cindy taking on the world,
The
man.
whole world.
You've never known a love until you've known a love where you feel that you could defeat everyone. Just you two.
Like Bonnie and Clyde, except they're good.
That's what you say. What I say is this song lasts for a full minute and 30 seconds, the scene 2.
I would have guessed 5 minutes.
Nothing happens.
It's awful.
Absolutely nothing happens, and the song is bad. It's so bad.
It's one of the very worst ones. I mean, just like you've pointed out with the acting, there are a lot of these singing takes where it's like, John, just one more, and you could at least be around the note.
Well, nothing just happened there. Something sure is about to happen here. Rick is next seen sitting in a tub with a fishing net full of seashells on the wall, while Cindy wraps her arms around him wearing his button-up dress shirt.
I think those are like pelts from shells he's killed.
He's hunted snails or something.
Yeah, he's a badass.
She asks him if he wants her to cook him a nice home-cooked meal tonight, but Rick has other plans. He says, well, why don't I just have you for dessert and skip the meal, huh? This gets her motor revving, and she says, you always did have a sweet tooth. Then they start kissing. Rick drags her into the bathtub, shirt and all.
Yep.
And the two kiss romantically, and it's easy to see why, because the soundtrack is playing, and yet again, it consists of a twangy guitar and John DeHart singing over it. This time around, Cindy climbs right on top of Rick and bounces and grinds on him as the very, very old man stares into her breasts, occasionally cupping them and smiling with that hideous mustache. And I can't tell if I think this sex scene is worse than the one from earlier with the ice on the nipple.
I think it might be worse.
Well, it's much longer.
It is much longer, and I think this is longer than in the other cuts, too.
I skipped it because
I did
got
too.
the idea.
This is how I actually know it's really long, is because I kept riding that 30-second skip. This scene is over 4 minutes long to get the whole song done. While the audience might not know, this is the song that goes, I'll be with you when you need me.
In the evening, when you're happy, anytime.
And that goes on for 4 minutes of him just rhyming different words in that same cadence. At some point, he does a little classical guitar solo.
You say 4 minutes? From the beginning that the song starts through the end of the sex scene, it is 5 minutes and 22 seconds.
Ooh, that's even worse than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's true, because I guess I was expecting it to end when it normally would when you're watching Road to Revenge.
And then keeps creeping along.
Yeah, so I probably let it play for a little bit before I started skipping.
He refers to it in interviews as the extended sauna scene. And it did not need to be
Sauna?
extended. That may not be the right word, but it is a word like the spa, maybe.
Oh, and I will say it is pretty funny, unintentionally, how they're draped in bubble bath the whole time.
Well, finally, after that 5 minute and 22 second excursion, our merciful Lord Satan intervenes and the sexing stops. While the two sit in the tub full of sex juices and soapy water, Rick clutches Cindy and says, I'm going to take you and marry you this weekend. And she says, I do.
She is so into him right now.
And they just stew in their juices together.
Oh, God.
I love that is John DeHart's luxury idea. In this movie, he's constantly doing these things that I imagine in his world is this is what's best about being a human. Drinking champagne, sitting in your big jacuzzi tub with your hot young wife and
grinding
just grabbing her. Yeah,
with your bag of seashells you've killed behind you.
The John DeHart, that's living.
Before we get to the big wedding, let's go ahead and take a quick break.
We got to get God so that the system burns.
We transition to a much more palatable situation, albeit one where a main character is still submerged in their own juices. We find ourselves now at Huck's Haven. We know that because there's a big sign there that says Huck's Haven.
Did a good job on the sign.
It is right in front of the swimming pool containing a denim-clad Wings Hauser who is just soaked up to his shoulders. He's been wet for a while.
He looks like he's wearing the same shirt that Cindy was wearing when she got submerged in water. She was wearing kind of a denim number.
Sitting just outside of the pool on a bench, we have the return of possibly the most charismatic character in the movie, Sam, the cigar store Native American.
Yep.
What the fuck is Huck doing, you might ask? I asked that several times. Well, he's listening to a Came with the Keyboard version of Ode to Joy, and he's rambling on. He says, number one, you never get down on anything unless you know something about it right from here, as he points to his heart. Number two, it's the little things in life that makes people's roads easy. As he says number two, he grabs a pinch of water and lets it dribble from his fingers, signifying the little things. After saying this, he waves for someone off screen to come here to his part of the pool, and we see two hot, topless babes come floating over on their pool floaties.
And this isn't like Rick. This checks out. Everybody would want to be with Wings Hauser in his pool while he rambles drunkenly.
In Huck's Haven.
Rick appears and asks the same question the audience has, which is, what the fuck are you doing, Huck? Wings Hauser says he's reciting the noble noises of Huckism.
Noble noises.
Mm-hmm. Huck then reveals that his eyes have been opened to religion by that flat-toned nun from earlier, and he has formed a new religion based on the teachings of Huckleberry Finn. He, in fact, invites Rick into the pool to learn more. Rick's not so sure.
So this is another thing. He squatted down by the pool, Rick is, and he claims that is also a back thing because his back hurt.
That's what he's claiming about this?
Yeah. And it is a weird angle, and Rick is wearing like a white sailor number. Like it's his shirt and his pants are white. He'll repeat this later, and he has kind of horizontal stripes. It's not really like anything he's worn in the movie up to this point.
Well, the top looks like something my grandpa wore in the 90s.
Yeah.
What do you think he's going for?
I think
Trendy.
naval hard dick.
Now, I personally could not explain the tenets of the new Huckleberry Finn religion any better than Wings Hauser does. Let's just hear him say it.
No, and I'm serious when I say this, okay? Huckleberry Finn, what'd he do, huh? He had the courage. He had the courage, man, to go upriver, not downriver. He didn't go downriver. He went upriver. Who'd he go upriver with? He went upriver with a slave named Jim. Well, what the hell are we, huh? We're all goddamn slaves, aren't we? We're slaves.
I think he's right.
I mean, he's got a point.
Let's eschew the Church of Satan and instead become Huckleberry Finnites or whatever.
Yeah, what are we if not bound by the shackles of our societal constraints?
I actually felt like in this scene, his monologue that he does at the bar scene doesn't really make as much sense here in the pool scene. It makes me think that perhaps this is the only thing that Wings can do. The little rambly sort of search for your line in the moment thing. This scene, I felt like I had enough of that already and didn't want to see it again.
Yeah.
This was too much.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to be fair, the movie's asking so much of him because it's a very bad movie. So he has to he fills a lot of space, and I do think he overreaches a bit at times.
Just this scene. The rest of it I'm good with, but here I did not enjoy him in this scene in particular.
I don't think this is intentional whatsoever, but whenever Huck starts the speech, you don't know anyone else is there, and it's almost like, oh, he's still nuts talking to Sam. Then those women swim up, and it's like, maybe he has turned a corner. There are people in the room or pool.
Maybe Huxhaven's really going to take off.
It's huge day. It's Scientology. That's what it did. Yeah.
Started that way.
Uh-huh. Wings says Huckleberry Finn, he's beyond Moses leading the Israelites out of ... wherever they came from ... into the promised land. He says that's how good Huckleberry Finn is. Rick is not all that interested in the lunatic's new religion, however, and he tells Wings that this weekend he and Cindy are getting married. And of course, Huck, you're the best man. I couldn't choose anyone else. Be there for the celebration. Rick leaves Huck in the pool with his ladies and his weird religion, and Wings mumbles to himself about Sunday being a great day for a wedding.
I do like the happy, positive character turn for
Yeah.
Huck at this point.
And then a Billy Idol song also.
It's a great day for a Huck wedding.
Yeah. Sunday wedding.
Flash ahead, and now we're at the wedding, guys.
Boy, they rushed this.
The bride looks lovely in her wedding dress. She's got her hair done, big earrings on, a nice bouquet of flowers. Even Wings Hauser has dressed up for the occasion. I mean, he's actually wearing a suit, albeit a burnt sienna orange suit with a pocket flower and big square glasses, but he did dress up.
Maybe he got the advice from Lanning.
The orange, yep.
This is the most formal he ever looks in this thing.
I don't know that we can say the same for the groom, however. Rick has decided the outfit he should wear on his wedding day consists of a bright white parachute pants, while the upper half is not something I actually know what it is. It's like a polo shirt, but with long sleeves, and it's white, but it has some stripy black things on it. He looks like he should be in an MC Hammer video.
No one's ever worn this.
No.
And I wish he had been in an MC Hammer video.
Right? The wedding itself is largely uneventful. The pastor does use the word asunder, which I appreciate. And Wings keeps inching his way into the scene uncomfortably.
He's jittering a lot.
In the background, they're focusing on the two people getting married, and Wings is like
Trying to steal that scene,
he's
too.
getting in there. Otherwise, they just do the vow thing, kiss, everyone cheers and hugs.
Do you think Jean DeHart was hoping that this would be legal? Like, and that he would just
That he
be
was married to
her after this movie was done?
A real Dwight Schrute
That's
trick.
what it was. I was trying to think of the popular culture thing. That's exactly it. And Lainey's here, by the way. Of course she is. She's the mother of the bride. But instead of wearing her orange frilly jacket thing, she's wearing the same thing, but it's white. I mean, it is the exact same frilly jacket thing, but a different color. I mean, she has two of the exact same
She
things.
might have
Well, she-
7, just
I was
different
going to
colors.
say, she's got a whole closet full of
Yeah,
One
she
for each
loves
day of the
those
week.
things. It's kind of like how she has a different carapace for each day.
Well, now it's time for the honeymoon. We got the wedding out of the way. What do you think we're going to do in the honeymoon?
Some ice sex.
Almost. Rick finds himself shirtless and lying prone in the bed, which is just something you do when you're his age. He holds up a glass of champagne to Cindy,
Ugh.
who we now see on the other end of the room wearing lingerie and doing a striptease dance. Well, you can't do it to no music, right?
No, that'd be weird.
Give me the shimmy slide.
Hell yeah. Every one of these sex scenes begins essentially with John DeHart prostate with a flute of champagne, and then Cindy is sort of the aggressor. And I think that's intentional too.
Well,
He's irresistible.
And also, he can't do any of
His
what
back's
she's
bad.
doing. I mean, he probably couldn't anyway. That guy's not moving, so you're gonna have
No.
to plop him down like a prop and be like, "All right, Cindy, get in there."
But it is another sign of how the character of Rick Bodie, though, is a man's man who leans back and gets pleasure. I'm surprised there aren't people palm fronding him.
Cindy gyrates and writhes for a bit, eventually saying, "Now I'm going to show you what kind of girl you really married." His response to this is, "All right, we'll send it in."
Not a problem.
I can't
wish.
imagine there'd be more secrets at this point. You were in a Satan cult where a baby got murdered.
Do you think he threw his back out fucking Alex?
I think that's the backstory we're coming up with. Let's stick with
The
it.
backstory.
Oh. Cindy climbs on top of Rick, and we get yet another sex scene. This one's a little shorter than some of the other ones, but it is
It
also
has to be.
awful. It is so bad. There's another John DeHart song playing over it that goes, "Don't stop loving me. Don't stop caring for me."
Yeah, it's the second time where he's directly, or third, where he's just directly singing over images of himself shoving his face into the midsection of a woman a third his age.
Yeah, Hart does things to her body, and she looks directly at the camera with her passion face, and this made me uncomfortable. Finally, it all ends, and we find ourselves back at Normad's house as the man himself pours some booze for his two right-hand men, Snake and Scar.
Finally, something easier to look at.
Normad has a little bit of managing to do because he tells the boys that he's just a tiny bit disappointed in them. You see, they need to be careful when they come to his home because he can't have the neighbors be suspicious considering they are street rabble. But Normad isn't all bad, okay?
What?
He says, "Look, we got the bad stuff out of the way. It's okay. You guys are doing well. I love you, but it's just a little something we need to work on, okay? I'm manager here." He says, "Let's turn our attention to something a little more pleasant. Talk about last week's transaction."
Let's talk about perks and benefits.
Scar says they had a pretty good week. They did $250,000 in coke, $500,000 in speed, and 100 G's in mainline. I don't know what that is.
Sounds like a great week, I think.
Yeah, well, in 1 week, Normad's thriving drug smuggling business did $850,000. Normad looks at the guys and goes, "That's not a good week. That's a great week." And then he grins real big. But it's not all good stuff from Scar. Scar says there's one other thing you should know. Remember that girl Cindy, the one who wasn't into baby murder and threw a big fit about it? Well, now she's hanging out with some cowboy who wears snakeskin boots and thinks he's a badass.
He's really young and attractive.
Scar says he wants to take him down, but Normad says, "I don't give a damn what you want, and I also don't give a damn about that son of a bitch in a cowboy hat." He just wants to know, when are you going to dust that broad?
And why did we not do that in the first place?
Scar says, "Oh, it'll happen soon," and Normad goes, "Okay, good. Just make sure it's done before the next coven meeting."
Yeah, it does need to really get done by then, honestly. Like,
That's one of their big coven meetings that's
and
coming up.
You don't want that kind of dangling in the ether, not accomplished yet, Cindy being alive. I like their attitude towards, like, it was really annoying how she ruined our big day.
Normad says, "There's one more thing, Scar." Pats him on the face and says, "Don't get caught." And each time he says a word, he slaps him in the face. Then pours a nice big glass of booze and hands it to Scar and says, "Have a drink."
Don't get caught also, and these guys do everything to get caught. Just like Normad.
The gang of bad guys are now back at Laney's bar, and since it's not cowboy night, Scar has dressed in his best A-shirt alongside Shawn Michaels, while Scotty Too Hottie is just poured into a black turtleneck. The bar is pretty dead, but the gang orders a pitcher of beer and 4 shots of bourbon, all the same. A waitress goes to get it, and Scar says, "You know, this chick's kind of cute. Maybe we can combine a little business with pleasure, huh?" And when the waitress brings the drink, they ask her why it's dead here. She says everyone was at a wedding. They demand to know if it was the owner's daughter getting married, and the waitress realizes these 4 are not to be trifled with, so she hesitates and they threaten her. Finally, Scotty Too Hottie says, "Are we going to talk about it, or are we going to do it?" And then the 4 leap into action, and we're just going to sum this part up here. Again, trigger warning, highly uncomfortable rape scene.
Yeah,
and it serves no purpose.
This is the most horrible thing in this movie of a dozen truly awful things. This wasn't in the other cuts of the movie either. There's horrible violence in this scene anyway, but it looks so goofy where they drag the bartender over the bar to the floor, but they're clearly using like a pillow or something. And that part is where this normally basically ends. But for some reason in this cut, John DeHart just, yeah, it's horrible.
Did you think the implication when you watched it originally and that was where the scene ended was that they raped her?
No.
Or that they killed her? I thought they just killed her.
I thought they killed her, or they just left her there on the floor and went to go pursue Cindy or whatever.
far worse.
In John DeHart's mind of the story, this is where it actually happens.
Well, moving on. It's the next day, and Rick is lying awkwardly on his side in bed staring at Cindy as she combs her hair and talks about her plans for the day.
And this scene is new also to us, to a certain degree.
Yeah, there's some in the old ones.
I have to say, every time I see Rick in a bed, like lying somewhere where Cindy's standing, I think she's going to go have sex with him, and I tense up.
Well, she spies a picture on the table from Rick's cop days and says, "Hey, who's that thick, wrinkly stegosaurus of a man there with you?" And Rick, without even seeing the photo, knows exactly she's talking about Normad, and he tells her so. Suddenly, she realizes something. That's the leader of the satanic cult. He's the one who stabbed that baby, or around that baby. Rick's response to this is, "Really?
No kidding. Huh.
I'll be damned."
Well, don't worry. We'll go get him.
Well, he tells her they're going to go to the police, and she says she's scared. But Rick, the hero, says, "You have nothing to worry about. We'll get that slime before he kills anyone else."
We might need to go to Home Depot, get a few things first, but after that, we'll get around to it. What a weird coincidence. I can't get over this, Cindy.
Why does he have a picture of Normad up in his room?
Excuse me? Is that's the question you have? I would have one.
I would. He shouldn't, though. He
Okay.
should hate Normad.
It is really funny that he has no pictures of anything, like no actual personal effects, except for a picture of him and a Satanist cult leader judge who's trying to ruin his best friend's life and got him kicked off the police force.
Meanwhile, Scar and Snake have been driving around, and they identify Rick's house just as Rick and Cindy come out and climb aboard Rick's Kawasaki motorcycle. Rick, of course, puts his helmet on, and Cindy, who's clutching his back riding behind him, doesn't get a helmet, which is absolutely hilarious to look at.
He takes it for himself, yeah. And you've got to think Scar and Snake or whatever back there, they're probably like, I see a really young, ripped, attractive guy in snakeskin boots. That's got to be the guy they're talking about.
Rick fires up his hog, and he's off like an elder, somehow less charismatic Reno Reigns. But they aren't alone. Right behind him, Scar and Snake are following, and I mean legitimately right behind him. They're, 5 feet away from the motorcycle.
This isn't a thing where he'd wonder if someone was tailing him.
Gar says something about a bitch in the box, like he just made up a phenomenal joke, and they just kind of move past it. Eventually, the scene does switch, and we see Cindy has a helmet. She didn't at first, now she does. Rick kind of pulls over and hand signals, I'm assuming the bad guys. Again, this is a scene that probably needed to be cut, but they kept it in.
I also don't know if he should be stopping and observing laws if he needs to flee for his life.
Right. They chase after each other for a while and wind up in a dirt road, and suddenly Cindy's helmet falls off. There's some dust, and the bad guys stop randomly, getting out of the car to kind of look in Rick and Cindy's direction, saying, "We got her!" And then they drive off. I don't know how they got her, but they did.
It's also worth noting that Normad ends the scene with his henchmen before saying, "Be sure that you killed her." And they do the exact opposite. They're basically like, "Hey, are you sure?" "No." "All right, we're good."
But we see the crashed bike, and Cindy's lifeless, bloody body is lying there on the road. Rick struggles to his feet and whips off his helmet, seeing his wife's broken body lying before him. He stares into her eyes and mumbles something that the camera can't pick up, eventually letting out a sob and cradling her head in his arms. You could say that this road that they crashed on, now a road to revenge.
Or is it? Can you get revenge? Well, we'll get into that at the end of the movie. But you'd think he'd check for a heartbeat.
Nope, that's it. We're next at the funeral for Cindy, where a grief-stricken Rick is standing alongside Huck, Laney, Cindy's father and stepmother, and a few other unnamed characters. After the preacher does his thing, Cindy's dad says, "I told her this kind of thing was going to happen. The wages of sin."
So at this point, you punch that guy in the mouth, right?
Oh, yeah.
I
You
mean,
don't let that go.
Especially if you're Rick, who is real trigger-happy with hitting people.
Or Wings, who punches every cop he sees.
Yeah,
Punch a
that's
bad
true.
guy here.
Not anymore. Wings is a new man. And,
True.
And Rick, for some reason, never does stand up to Cindy's dad, and I don't get that. He
No.
stands up to everyone else. But
Except for a guy who, like, is a total dick to the woman he loves. This pastor has to be thinking, I've had a busy week with these people.
Everyone kind of wanders off, leaving Rick with Huck, who tells the grieving man he has something for him, but I'll come by later and give it to you, and then just stumbles away. Rick has a vow for Cindy, however. Let's hear it.
I'll get even for you, Cindy. I promise I'll get even.
It's the title
Whoa,
of the movie!
one of them.
And he even did say it like it's supposed to be one word.
Well, yeah, get even.
Y'all get even, Cindy.
He probably thinks that's what it is.
Rick is now firmly in the grieving/training for vengeance process that everyone goes through after a death. So he's in his home gym punching the shit out of an Everlast punching bag while there's a motorcycle poster on the wall. Wings Hauser appears, and he's in full Huck Finn regalia now. He has a straw hat, denim shirt and pants, and you better believe he's pulled those pant legs up as high as he can go. And of course, he's barefoot too, but you guys knew that.
That's normal for him.
Huck says he knows his friend needs someone right now, but Wings isn't implying he's the friend Rick needs. Instead, he brings in the true hero of the movie. It's, of course, Sam the cigar store Native American. Wings tells Rick that in his darkest hour, it was Sam who saved him. And now, maybe Sam can save Rick too. Wings wheels Sam in there and leaves man and statue alone to deal with grief.
Rick realistically does not give a shit about any of this.
Doesn't respond to anything.
No. He's way too focused on punching the shit out of this Everlast bag.
Without moving his back at all in the process.
Or legs, or barely arms.
The problem with all of this, though, in Wings Hauser's plan is not Rick who needs saving. It's the bastards at Normad's house that need saving.
And there's no saving them.
Suddenly, Rick has blood on his mind. We see him skulking through the woods in the dark of night, a bow and arrow in his arms, and apparently a crossbow and a gun.
Whoa. Are we suddenly at the climax of this movie?
I was going to say, it sounds like you're rushing this, but you're not.
No, this is
what happens.
Wait, so all of a sudden, Rick and Cindy got married, Cindy died, and now Rick's getting his revenge.
In the last 10 minutes of the movie.
Yep.
Huh. Why'd the first hour and 20 minutes have to happen?
It didn't.
Don't stop loving me. Rick's arrived at Normad's compound, where he comes across a kind of a chubby guy in a mustard-colored shirt holding a gun and standing guard on top of the roof of the house.
Very natural looking.
Rick readies his bow, draws the string back, and launches an arrow directly into the throat of the mustard man, causing him to plummet off the roof and into the pool below.
He does a good moonsault.
And you don't see him fall in the pool, you just see the water splash up, which is kind of funny. A fancy car arrives at the house, and you guys know that scene in Empire Strikes Back where Darth Vader is seen from behind with his helmet off, and it's menacing and scary, and he puts the helmet on. That's kind of what happens here, although instead of a Dark Lord of the Sith putting on his helmet, we see a Dark Lord of the courtroom, and he's putting on his giant tinted glasses as Normad prepares for his guests. Scotty Too Hotty knocks on the door to let the man himself know that the guests have arrived. His response? I thought they would be.
Right, you made an
knew they were
appointment.
coming.
That's why you invited him.
Normad asks Scotty Too Hotty what he thinks of his glasses, and a sly grin crosses Scotty's face. Normad? Asking his input on his look? Too good to be true. But Scotty says, I like him, which causes Normad to cackle maniacally and say, I thought you would. Good boy.
What is different about these glasses versus his other tinted glasses?
That are the same glasses.
I actually feel like that was a genuine response to, like, the earnest was in that response. Like, yeah, I like those. I think those are pretty cool, actually, Normad.
You look a little extra evil. It gives you what you need.
Arriving via that car is a man speaking Spanish alongside his beautiful wife and several police officers that we saw earlier, including that Baldwin guy. Normad greets this man and the two trade compliments, with Normad smooth-talking his beautiful gal, asking her name and offering the two to come inside where he will give them something to drink.
The idea of Normad smooth talking.
Boy, is he. She loves it. But this Hispanic man waves Normad off and says, no, just business. Normad kind of loses his smile here, perhaps a bit disappointed, and he says, come in, sit down, and let's do it. As the trio of bad people go inside, the camera lingers on a shot of the roof of the house, where we see the unmistakable mug of Rick spying on the proceedings.
It's funny, too, how he pops up.
Like a little owl up there. He slowly slinks out of frame, intent on using his turn signal to merge onto the road to revenge. Normad and the Hispanic guy are at Normad's desk, and by now Rick has made his way inside. Rick aims his crossbow at an unseen enemy and says, "Hey there, double ugly," before firing it into the back of a man wearing a different mustard-colored shirt.
There's something about saying like a Laffy Taffy rapper insult and then murdering a man that is unsettling.
From behind.
Yeah.
In a different part of the house, the shadow of another man is standing guard, but he's approached by a different shadow of an elderly man with a mustache, who then twists his neck violently, silently breaking it and eliminating the sentry. Normad shows the Hispanic guy his briefcase full of money and asks to see the guy's drugs, which the guy then pulls out of a baggie and slaps on the counter. Normad tastes it, and the look of delight crosses his face. He's pleased with this. And he says, you and me, we're going to be in business a long time.
Well,
The Hispanic guy whips out a 1993 cell phone and calls Raul, saying something to him in Spanish, which causes Normad to point angrily at him and say, "You speak English when you're in my home."
Normad is one of those.
Just then, Scar bursts through the door to the office and says to Normad that somebody just got whacked, one of the inside guards. Normad angrily assumes that the Hispanic drug dealer double-crossed him, and when the man stands to his feet and begins to yell at him in Spanish, Normad pulls out a gun and fires it twice into his midsection.
Might have wanted to check up on on what was really happening first.
Normad shoots first and asks questions later. He doesn't have time to ask questions
I guess
first.
this is a baby stabber. What does he give a shit?
This sends the gal just into a frenzy. So Normad says, bye-bye, bitch, and then he shoots her twice, too. Meanwhile, Rick has made it to one of those Benny Hill hallways where people just keep popping out of random doors.
Yeah, I put Scooby-Doo or also Holmes and Yo-Yo.
That's true, yeah. We see Scotty Too Hottie peep out and fire his gun. Snake does the same thing out of a different door. Baldwin Cop comes out of another door and shoots his gun, but each one misses Rick, who doesn't move, and then proceeds to just knock them off one at a time with his little pistol.
They just weren't as good as him.
All three of the bad guys are killed, but then another unnamed bad guy in a mustard shirt jumps around the corner with like an Uzi or an automatic gun. He starts just spraying bullets everywhere.
Everywhere. I mean, just you couldn't miss a guy.
And misses Rick entirely. Rick shoots him and kills him. By this time, Normad has made his way into the basement where he's sampling the big briefcase full of cocaine.
This is awesome. He does not care that his whole staff or whatever has gotten killed and then he's in danger. He's like, everything's good when I'm in here in my Satan room snorting cocaine.
He's got like a whole bag of it. He's downing in his nose.
I can't really blame him. That does seem like a really good escape, and like
Sure.
you can numb yourself to whatever's about to kill you if you're gonna have that much drugs.
But mid-snort, Rick appears. Rick says, surprise! The high and mighty judge caught with his pants down.
So intimidating.
Wow, you got enough dope there, Normad, to do 30 years.
Normad's done a lot more than 30 years in prison's worth of crimes.
I really don't understand the 30 years thing. Normad would go away forever.
20 years if you got good behavior. But Normad just smiles and has a surprise of his own. Just then, Shawn Michaels and Scar come up behind Rick and grab him by the arms at gunpoint. Normad says he'd love to kill Rick himself, but he's too busy, which I buy.
Yeah.
So he tells the two thugs to take him out into the woods and eliminate the man before he goes back to his giant bags of cocaine.
This is some James Bond villain stuff here. Give him too much time. And Rick is a lot like James Bond in the world of this movie.
But as the two thugs drag Rick out to the woods, there's something they didn't count on. A giant barefoot man with a straw hat. Wings Hauser rushes to the guys and bashes Shawn Michaels in the back with a big plank of wood. This takes the guy out of the fight, but we do hear a gun go off only to see Wings crumple to the ground saying, "Aw, shit."
Poor Wings, he gets shot all the time in this movie.
If he's not getting shot, he's hitting a cop.
Thanks to this opening, though, Rick tussles with Scar, and there's another bang of a gun. Slowly, Scar turns around to reveal a blood stain right in the middle of his stomach. He, too, crumples to the ground, dead. Rick checks in on his best friend, and it turns out Wings was shot in the leg, and it's in pretty bad pain. Rick says to him, "Oh, do that tourniquet thing. I'll be back," and then scampers off.
Which is probably just as pleasant as that bleach thing was. I like how Huck just is here.
Yeah, he's just hanging out.
In the previous scene, he offers up Sam to a punching bag hitting Rick, and then he just knows to be here.
He knew. Yeah, he had that look on his face. Do you tie a tourniquet above or below the wound?
Closer to the heart.
Okay.
So on his leg, you would tie it above it.
All right. Yeah, I wouldn't know that. And if I'd just been shot in the leg and someone said, do the tourniquet thing, I wouldn't know what to do. And
if
I
your
bleed
friend
out.
casually told you to do that tourniquet thing.
While he went and killed Normad. Yeah, I wouldn't know. I would not know what to do.
Back in the basement, Normad has put on a Satanist robe and is thanking Satan for the great bounty bestowed upon him.
Cocaine.
But in struts Rick with a gun pointed at Normad, saying a hearty, "It's me again."
Can he not resist?
The one-liner?
He can't resist barging in a Normad with a line.
Normad calls him a loser.
That's
Rick,
pretty great.
It is great. And Rick has his own insults at the ready. He says Normad is the kind of puke that makes the world decay.
Not anything I've heard before.
Normad picks up the case of drugs and tells Rick that there's enough contraband here to make them both very rich. This doesn't work on Rick. Rick's a good man who never does anything wrong. He says, "I'm not going to sell my soul to the devil." Normad approaches him and says, "Yeah, that's why no one ever accused you of being bright, Bodie." Rick tells him that Normad killed the only woman he ever loved. In all my 65 years of life, I've never once loved another woman.
And that's why I had to get even and go on this road to revenge.
Hey, do you have any champagne for this bullet I'm about to shoot? Normad says about Cindy, "She was a full-blown bitch."
So, at this point, I wondered if William Smith was drunk.
Wings shared with him for a bit. As he says this, he swiftly, and I use the term swiftly very generously here, swats the gun out of Rick's hand and throws a mighty right hook at him. Rick gets in several punches to send Normad staggering back a few steps, and the evil judge / drug smuggler / cult leader reaches for that ceremonial dagger that he stabbed that baby with earlier in the movie. He dives at Rick with the weapon, only for our hero to do a twist move, which causes Normad to let out a mighty oof. You see, Rick not only deflected Normad's knife attack, he redirected it right back into his gut.
And that's the only thing that can kill a Normad is that
Stab
Satan,
the
That
Satan
and the silver
knife.
bullet.
Yeah,
And the silver bullet.
with his name written on it. Normad stumbles back to the satanic altar, realizing he's been beaten. As he fades away, he gets one last curse in on Rick, who responds exactly how he should.
I'll see you in hell, you son of a bitch.
Not a problem.
And with that, the life fades out of Normad's eyes. It's all over. Rick has, in fact, got even.
This version of the movie, Champagne and Bullets, when Rick says his final not a problem there, he's not on screen.
No, not at all. It's
I'm
just
pretty
it's another
sure
one of
he
those.
is in the others. I think they edited to show that. I might be wrong. Maybe I'm just imagining that. But I was pretty surprised when I was looking at a dying Normad and heard an off-screen, not a problem.
Rick helps Wings Hauser to their car, and the two drive away from the compound.
Oh, there's DNA everywhere in there. I'm going to be in a lot of trouble, Huck.
Sometime in the future, Rick is now at Cindy's grave, and he decided he would dress up for the occasion to visit his dead wife.
It's also July 4th.
Yeah, he's wearing his best pair of blue jeans, low-cut V-neck shirt, and an American flag denim jacket buttoned at the bottom.
Pretty sweet.
A somber, mumbly song plays in the background, and we see the return of the most beloved character in this
thank
movie,
God.
Sister Mary Rebecca.
She walks up just fucking talking like she never stopped.
Well, she's in full nun garb, approaches Rick, asks, hey, do you remember me? They weren't in the same scene together. Maybe they passed each other, but apparently he does. He says, you made quite an impression on Huck. Of course I remember you.
Are you here to make me repent for my sins of killing a dozen men?
No, I just need you to give me a ride to the hospital.
She says she told Huck God works in mysterious ways, and I'm telling you the same thing now, Rick. In fact, it's difficult to understand, but I need a ride to the hospital. Can you take me there? And Rick's like, oh, okay, this is a weird request, but I can do
I'm
it.
kind
But
of busy with my wife.
I'd like to mourn for
I mean,
a moment.
can I lend you money for a cab or something? I'm grieving.
I'm afraid not.
Also, I'm really sore from all the killing.
No, she says that I'm afraid not thing. Also, whatever, just come with me to the hospital.
Over and
it'll
over again.
happen.
I need a ride to the hospital, Rick.
He finally sighs and relents, so the two head off. In the hospital, we see something no one expected to see. It's Cindy! She's in bed recuperating, but is very much alive, just has a little bandage on her head.
Oh, good. You're going to explain how this makes sense.
That's what I'm going to do. Rick is baffled by this, but I guess happy? I don't know, I can't tell.
He's mostly okay with it.
He's mostly surprised, like, if you found a $10 bill you didn't know you had.
Like, oh, how about that?
Huh.
Cindy explains that she came to in the ambulance after the wreck, but since they knew that there were people trying to kill her, they had to keep it a secret.
The doctor started a secret, like a witness protection program. The hospital came up with it.
It's part of the Hippocratic Oath.
She's like, we even had to do a fake funeral and everything. He's like, I know, I was there mourning you.
And like, was it part of the cops' contingency that's like, this is really saves our department money, because if we play it this way and we do a fake funeral and everything, Bodie's going to go murder all those guys for us.
And then she makes sure to mention, I wanted to tell you. Well, I did, we couldn't.
They said you had too many important murders to commit.
He is immediately okay with this answer, too. And he's like, okay, sure, your life was in danger. I get it. And besides, you don't have to worry anymore. I killed a lot of people.
They're all gone now, Cindy.
Normad, his friends, nobody seems to care that I killed all these people, so I think we're fine.
Now, the flashbacks might become an issue at night sometimes for me after having done what I've done, Cindy.
The two kiss and paw at each other, saying, I love you. Screen fades to black. We're met with the familiar sounds. The shimmy slide as the credits roll.
Holy shit, what a movie.
Beautiful movie. Absurd to every degree. I do want to get this out there. The first time we watched it, we like to riff movies when we watch them. I will never forget Brian doing this, but the second we found out Cindy was alive, Brian, as John DeHart, as Rick or whatever, goes, Cindy, I'm thrilled you're alive, but I killed an awful lot of people to get here.
It is just the stunning revelation of this movie, is that all of the action happens in like 15 minutes, essentially, toward the end. it's called Road to Revenge or Get Even. He doesn't have anything to get even or any Road to Revenge. Cindy's alive. So he's just murdered all these people. And the stark relief of like, Cindy's alive, but a lot of other people aren't, is quite stunning. And the fact that no one seems to give a shit. And this movie, death is kind of light if it's not Cindy.
Or Baby.
Yeah. Or even Cindy. The way Rick acts when he finds out she's alive, like we said, kind of casual about it, I half expect him to be like, well, I got to go back to the cemetery to talk to Cindy.
Like he doesn't get it.
Yeah.
We covered most of my stray notes. We've just kind of tattered them throughout, but I have a few facts for you here. As for casting Pamela Jean Bryant as the love interest, John DeHart said he had 100 women audition and didn't like any of them. He was like, none of these women can fill this role. He then went into a SAG agency, saw her picture, called her, boom, cast her immediately.
100 actual auditions, no luck at all.
Nope.
But he had that catalog. I wonder why he chose her.
DeHart does say he's still involved in the industry a bit, meaning the movie industry. He said he has a script for a cop show he wanted to get made, and at one point had a light script for Get Even 2. I don't know what that would even be.
So a light script, this full script was 16 pages. So that one was like 4. Yeah, it's just a couple pages.
I did see this quote too, and people asked him, or the interviewer asked him, would the cast be involved or something? And he obviously said, well, that would be complicated because a lot of people have died.
Yeah.
And they don't want to work with me again.
Well, William Smith wasn't dead at the time of that interview. So he was just kind of like, maybe he doesn't want to do it, but we could get him out there. He's like 95 years old.
Well, he did make a comment about William Smith, like, oh, he's a little older. And it's like, a little, though. No, it's not that much. I looked it up. Right. I think William Smith is like just a couple of years older than Wings Hauser.
Let's wrap this up and talk about our thoughts and experiences with the movie. What do you remember about the first time you watched it? We talked about when we realized this was brilliant, but is there anything else you recall about that first night we saw it that really told you how magical this was?
I did have that feeling I have when I watch a movie that, to me, is really great or spectacularly bad, where each scene felt exciting and fresh and new, and I did not know what was going to happen. And that only really good and bad movies have that, where you're left almost mouth agape in astonishment at what you're seeing, because it's just subverting your expectations, and it's hitting you in either all the right or wrong spots. I felt as much that way about watching this movie, like just stunned by it and just having a great time experiencing it when we saw it, as I have anything. It's just mesmerizing. It's hard to even forget it now. Like a lot of times over time, you see a thing more times and you forget that spark. No, this movie is that dumb. You'll remember it.
I was immediately drawn to, as we discovered throughout watching the first one, how many different hats Normad was wearing. Was the first thing where it was like, oh my God, this guy does this, and this. He's involved in all parts of this movie, and that's not possible. And his stupid character was the first one to be super endearing to me. Of course, Wings in all of his scenes is incredible, but Normad is what seriously was my kind of moment where it was like, this is something special.
One thing that did happen in this, and it happens occasionally when we find one of these diamonds in the rough, is when we sit around and watch movies, and we'll do it occasionally, watch bad movies, we will chat over them or talk about just different stuff and barely even pay attention. We didn't do that in this one. I remember explicitly, we did that at the beginning, but the second we saw John DeHart's stupid face, we were zoned in and focused on this thing.
We had to hear how he was reading his lines, see his facial expressions. We needed to actually witness the movie the same way you would a good one. It's really weird.
Well, where is this one, just spitball it with me here, in your top 10 of bad movies? Where does it rank for you guys?
That's really hard. It's the upper echelon. It's not really possible to do better at being bad than this. You might be in the same tier or whatever, but you can't really beat it.
This is my kind of unofficial in my mind rankings, which I hilariously do for bad movies, but not good, because that's kind of harder anyway, right? As far as good, bad movies go, this is number 2 for me.
Number 2. Okay. Well, I wanted to reveal this. I listened to snippets of the old podcast we released about Road to Revenge. You said it was your number 2 then.
Wow, I was very
So
aggressive
consistent.
at the time.
I gave it a 9 out of 10 because I said The Room is perfect. And Brian said, well, but it's close enough to The Room to be.
It is right
perfect.
On its heels. If The Room is 1A, this is 1B.
I was the dissenter. I said I like this one more. I don't necessarily know if I stand by that, but boy, do I love this movie.
Yeah, it's incredible. Another, just an unsung fact about this movie's climax being rushed too, is the final boss showdown might be the most brief I've ever seen in an action movie. And there's something charming about that too, almost like they forgot they needed to do one.
Well, people love the comeuppance of an action movie or a movie like this. They want to see the hero go get the bad guy. The only problem was they looked at the timer and was like, we only have 8 minutes left.
And we don't know how to film actual fight scenes. The other thing too is like, there can't be the suspense of the audience being afraid for this character they've grown to know and love, because Rick, he doesn't get hurt.
No,
Never.
He's invincible.
But that's part of this movie's charm, of course.
Well, and that plays into the auteur, the one guy making himself flawless and perfect. Happened in this movie. I have a feeling it happens in the movie we're going to cover next. That's a great time to transition to giving Spencer the floor, because it's your turn to pick a movie next. And if this was not number one, the next one probably is.
And that's why this is so much pressure. I have taken it upon myself to make us discuss what I think, and Van, I guess, doesn't necessarily agree, the very best bad movie of all time. Not 1A, 1B or whatever, but the best. And it's become a lot more mainstream since we discovered it, thanks to Van, who brought over a DVD of it in 2013. We watched it 100 times or something ridiculous, like easily over 10. Since then, like I said, it's become mainstream. James Franco made a movie about it, The Disaster Artist. I am going to try my best to go over that movie, The Room 2003, Tommy Wiseau's masterpiece, and I'm going to try to take us through it and do it justice. And it's going to be quite a challenge.
As I learned this time, doing the movies is hard.
Yeah.
There are a lot more notes you have to take. I wanted more clips. So it's a journey doing the movie parts of it, but I have faith that you can handle it.
Ooh, it's going to be a lot, but I'll try. I'll do it for The
This
Room.
is going to be amazing. And one quick preface to The Room thing, and I think it's just so special because you won't find a all-time bad movies list where The Room's not number 1 or 2 or 3 or something like that. And it's the rare time where that is earned.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
People have said the Citizen Kane of bad movies. I think Citizen Kane is more objectionably good than this is objectionably fascinatingly bad.
Fair enough.
I mean, it's just so delightfully, I can just taste it. The dialogue.
Van is going to be dropping some Google Drive links for these movies that we're covering for any of you who are interested, and they are kind of hard to find. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, that way you can download it. I'll put it in the show descriptions. I'll put that in this one so that way you can find it for next week when we cover it. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. We're on YouTube, Bootu Inc. We're on TikTok, Bootu Inc. We're here in the Bootu Inc. studios. Just go look at our stuff. Look at bootuinc.com. Excellent stuff out there for you to see, read, etc. We'll be back next week with The Room. But until then, oh, bye, Spencer. Oh, bye, Brian.
You're my favorite customer.
Well, they're sleek and they're sliding all across the floor, grooving 2 by 2, stomping for some more. That's when my eyes catch you and my heart begins to sing. Oh, pretty baby, I imagine you can swing. The beat starts a moving as they push me from my chair. My fingers start a snapping when I run them through your hair. I got to get to you, but I get to the side, 'cause everybody's doing the shimmy and the slide. You're on fire when I grab you by the hand. Your waist is moving with the rhythm of the band. My eyes swell up as you take me for a ride. Come on, pretty baby, let's do the shimmy slide. Well, I've had a couple beers and I'm feeling just right. I'm sweating all over 'cause her dress is so tight. I try to act cool, but you just won't stop. Oh, pretty baby, you make me so hot. It's Pretty baby, let's do the shimmy slide. Let's do it again. Oh, you're on fire when I grab you by the hand. Your waist is moving with the rhythm of the band. My eyes swell up as you take me for a ride. Come on, pretty baby, let's do the shimmy slide.